When we talk about energy transfer through touch, it is something far deeper than what most people see on the surface. Because touch is not just a physical act, it is a spiritual exchange. Every human being carries an energy field, a vibration, that flows from their inner spirit into their outer presence, and when skin meets skin, when one person lays hands on another, that vibration does not remain isolated. It is transmitted. It flows, it connects, and it leaves behind a spiritual imprint. For the chosen ones, this is amplified to a greater degree because of the heightened spiritual sensitivity they carry. A chosen one can sense heaviness, can feel discomfort, can even recognize darkness through something as simple as a handshake, a hug, or an uninvited touch. This is why so much caution is required, especially in the final days when the forces of good and evil are working more aggressively, when distractions and attacks are coming in ways that seem small, subtle, or innocent, but carry deep spiritual weight. Energy does not lie, it cannot be hidden, and it often enters unnoticed. For example, someone carrying resentment, jealousy, or envy can unknowingly project those emotions into a chosen one through touch. It may appear like a casual moment of connection, but what is happening on the unseen level is the depositing of negative vibrations into the spirit. Chosen ones are like vessels of light, and light naturally attracts both good and bad attention. Some people are drawn to that light for healing and peace, but others, consciously or unconsciously, want to dim it, feed off it, or contaminate it. This is why spiritual awareness about physical boundaries becomes so crucial. It is not about living in fear or isolating from everyone, but about recognizing that the skin is not just a boundary for the body. It is an opening to the soul's energy field. A chosen one who allows anyone to constantly touch, hug, or hold them without discernment is unknowingly granting access to the very core of their spiritual strength. And because in the final days the attacks are more subtle, it may not even feel like an obvious danger. It may come from people who smile, laugh, and act kindly, yet inside carry hidden bitterness or spiritual pollution. The transfer of energy in that moment can leave the chosen one drained, heavy, confused, or weakened without realizing why. This is also why the enemy often uses physical closeness as a tactic. A simple touch on the shoulder, a handshake, or a pat on the back can be more than what it seems. Spirits can travel through touch, intentions can be transferred, and atmospheres can shift in seconds. Chosen ones, because of their spiritual calling, cannot afford to take these exchanges lightly. Their mission, their clarity, their divine assignment is too important to be interrupted or contaminated by energies that do not align with their purpose. This is why they must guard themselves with prayer, discernment, and boundaries, knowing that every touch carries something unseen, and not every connection is meant to be accepted. The protection of sacred energy is one of the most vital responsibilities a chosen one carries because their light, their spirit, and their divine essence are unlike anyone else's. A chosen one has been set apart, refined through trials, and strengthened through battles that most could not endure, and within them lies a spiritual power that must remain pure and undiluted. This power is what fuels their ability to discern, to heal, to inspire, and to fulfill the purpose given to them. But it is also the very thing that makes them a target. When you carry something precious, it automatically draws attention, both from those who honor it and those who seek to exploit it. Protecting sacred energy means realizing that not everyone deserves access to your presence. Not everyone deserves to stand close to your inner light. And not everyone is worthy of touching the spiritual fire that God has placed within you. Energy is sacred because it represents the connection between you and the divine source. And for chosen ones, that connection cannot be carelessly shared. Every interaction with others, whether through words, gestures, or touch, either strengthens or weakens that sacred power. People who are lost in negativity, confusion, or dark influences can unknowingly drain the light of a chosen one simply by being in their space too long or reaching for physical closeness. They may not even realize what they are doing, but the result is always the same. The chosen one feels heavy, tired, spiritually distracted, and less focused on their mission. That is why boundaries are not just an act of self-preservation, but an act of spiritual warfare. They are shields that protect the purity of the divine flame within. Sacred energy is also fragile in the sense that it must be continually replenished with prayer, silence, solitude, and connection with God. When others are constantly allowed to touch, hug, or cling to a chosen one without discernment, that energy leaks. It becomes vulnerable, diluted, and misaligned. The chosen one may begin to feel disconnected from their inner peace, struggling to maintain clarity, or overwhelmed by emotions and thoughts that are not their own. This happens because energy is transferred and exchanged, and without spiritual protection, the purity of sacred light becomes mixed with outside influences. Protecting this energy means being selective, being intentional, and being aware that closeness with others is not always safe for the spirit. In the final days, this protection becomes even more urgent because spiritual attacks are not always loud and obvious. They often come quietly, disguised as comfort, disguised as affection, disguised as a friendly gesture. But for the chosen ones, discernment must cut through appearances to recognize the true intention behind every interaction. Protecting sacred energy requires courage to say no, strength to create distance, and wisdom to allow only those who are aligned with God's light to enter your personal space. It is about treating your spirit as the holy vessel it is, understanding that your calling is far too precious to risk contamination or depletion through careless connection. Spiritual warfare awareness is one of the most important lessons for chosen ones to embrace, because the final days are not simply about surviving the physical world, but navigating the unseen battles that are constantly at play. To the natural eye, a touch may seem harmless, a gesture may appear kind, and a connection may look ordinary. But to the spiritual eye, every action carries intent, and not all intent comes from a place of light. Chosen ones must realize that the closer they move to their destiny, the more the forces of darkness seek to interfere. And one of the easiest ways they attempt to do so is through physical contact. A simple handshake, a pat on the back, or even a seemingly affectionate hug can be used as a point of transfer, a way to deposit heaviness, confusion, or spiritual blockages into the chosen one's life. This is why heightened awareness is required, because spiritual warfare does not always reveal itself in dramatic attacks or obvious dangers. Instead, it hides behind normality, disguising itself as something routine, hoping the chosen one will let down their guard. When you're called, when your life is marked for purpose, every small interaction becomes a potential battlefield. The enemy knows he cannot stop the chosen one's destiny, so he tries to weaken them, slow them down, or distract them through subtle exchanges that go unnoticed. Awareness is the shield, the ability to discern the difference between genuine connection and hidden manipulation, between love and envy, between blessing and curse. Chosen ones often carry an aura that others are drawn to. People may feel compelled to reach out, to touch, to connect, but not all of them come with good intentions. Some come with jealousy, others with bitterness, and some even with spiritual darkness that clings and spreads through contact. Without awareness, the chosen one becomes vulnerable to these hidden attacks, unknowingly carrying weights that are not theirs, struggling with emotions that never belonged to them, or experiencing confusion that seems to appear out of nowhere. Spiritual warfare awareness means paying attention to the subtle shifts that occur after an interaction, noticing when peace is disrupted, when clarity fades, or when heaviness sets in. These are not coincidences. They are signs of unseen battles taking place. In the final days, the intensity of these battles grows stronger because the light of the chosen ones is shining brighter than ever, and the enemy cannot afford to let it go unchallenged. That is why awareness is more than just knowledge, it is vigilance, a constant guarding of the spirit, a refusal to accept every touch, every gesture, and every connection as innocent. It means listening to the inner voice of discernment, trusting the instincts that whisper when something is not right, and choosing to prioritize spiritual safety over social expectations. Awareness transforms a chosen one from being vulnerable to being unshakable. From being a target to being a warrior who sees beyond appearances and understands that every interaction is either a tool of light or a weapon of darkness in these final days. Chosen ones must understand the seriousness of their calling and the weight of the spiritual atmosphere. Here around them, energy is real, touch is powerful, and not every connection comes from a place of love or purity. You are carrying something sacred, something divine, and that makes you both a light and a target. Guard your spirit, guard your space, and guard the gift God has placed within you. Be aware of the subtle ways the enemy tries to enter, because every handshake, every hug, and every touch carries more than what the eyes